What's up, guys, and welcome back to Malt Mondays.
In Scotland, would you accidentally drive up to Talisker?
Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Bruichladdich Octomore. So Octomore is its own line within Bruichladdich products because, as you notice, I've been going through the other Bruichladdich whiskeys, a few of them, and they really they don't want people to be confused by which of their whiskeys are peated and which of their whiskeys are unpeated, and that's because they're from Islay. So most of the whiskeys on Islay are peated or pretty heavily peated, but there are a couple of distilleries producing unpeated whiskeys. Bruichladdich is one of them. Bunnahabhain makes most of their whiskeys unpeated. So Bruichladdich really wanted to make sure that when people go to buy their products, they're not confused over which ones are going to be smoky and which ones aren't. So the Octomore line and the Port Charlotte line are both heavily peated, and the Octomore line is actually the most heavily peated whiskey available according to Bruichladdich. So a typical Islay whiskey would be peated like Lagavulin, somewhere 30 ppm. And then you have Ardbeg and Laphroaig, which are around 40. This one's at 167. So this has 4 times as much peat influence as the distilleries that are mostly considered to be the other really heavily peated whiskeys, like Ardbeg and Laphroaig. So we're going to go ahead and pour this. And, Octomore, the name comes from a farm on Islay. There's an Octomore farm. Now, I don't believe this is actually being made entirely with barley from the Octomore farm, because this is the 6.1 edition. So each year they come out with 3, at least, editions of the Octomore, the 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. Oh man, I can already smell the smoke. So the 0.1 editions are always 5 years old and ex-bourbon cask only. And that it's kind of the baseline of what Octomore is. And then the 0.2 and 0.3 editions explore further of what Octomore could be with different cask finishes, exploring, again, like if you watched my Islay barley video, the terroir of where the barley's from. So I believe the 0.2 and 0.3 editions are made only with barley from the Octomore farm on Islay. But I think the 0.1 is still using barley from mainland Scotland. So we're gonna, man, I can already smell this. It's really powerful, just opening it and pouring it. So this is bottled at 57% alcohol, and it is uncolored. And like I said, it's only 5 years old. So this is pretty interesting because typically distilleries, especially in Scotland, aren't really willing to go to bottle these really young whiskeys. And a lot of that's just because of the preconception that people have that old whiskey is better. That's not always true. Old whiskey is just different whiskey. Whether it's better or not is kind of your personal opinion, and that's subjective. So I really like that Bruichladdich is exploring, well, what happens if we bottle a really young whiskey, but we bottle it at cask strength, natural color, and we smack a ton of peat on it? What does that do? So it's kind of an experimental line at first, but now that it's been going on 6-7 years, it's really coming to its own. So, it's got a nice light pale gold color, natural color, and on the nose, just huge amount of smoke. But this is not a super medicinal smoke the way Laphroaig is. And this is not the super woody ashtray campfire smoke that I get from an Ardbeg. So this has its own character to it. And actually, the first thing that this smells like to me is like smoked brisket and bacon. This is much more of like a cooked meat, smoked meat kind of smoke. But it's so powerful that it's actually kind of hard to get your nose all the way in the glass. There's not a sharp alcohol aroma, despite the fact that it's 57%, despite the fact that it's young whiskey. It actually has a really, really nice nose on it. I get a good amount of barley here. Vanilla. I get some fruit, but it's nothing distinct. It's unmistakably Bruichladdich on the nose with the barley, light fruitiness, just a touch of citrus. But, the peat is it's the overwhelming thing here. But not to the point that you can't taste those other flavors. So actually, on the nose, this is much more well-balanced than I would have expected, considering it says it's 167 ppm. And I will say, I think this shows that there's a limit to what you can smell. I would not say that this is significantly smokier than Laphroaig or Ardbeg, despite the fact that on paper and chemically there may be 4 times as many peat and smoke particles actually attached to the whiskey molecules. At least my ability to perceive that is it doesn't come across as that much more smoky than a Laphroaig or an Ardbeg. So let's see how it tastes. Wow. Okay. Definitely tastes a lot peatier than Laphroaig or Ardbeg. It actually kind of just tastes like I got smacked in the mouth with a brick of peat. So maybe on the nose you're limited in how much you can smell, but I think on the palate, I think there's definitely room to taste more. But that being said, it's not bad. I like peat. So don't mistake my reaction as a negative reaction necessarily. It's more of just surprise. But man, it's definitely peaty, dry grass peat. Again, not the super medicinal, burning old sock peat of Laphroaig. It's not quite as stinky peat. But I do get a little bit of the Band-Aid flavor, a lot of vanilla, a lot of barley notes, but a really, really creamy mouthfeel. The high ABV on this does not come across as alcohol burn, no burn in my throat at all. It just gives a really, really nice heavy weight to this whiskey. It actually reminds me of smoking a cigar, and kind of that day after smoking a cigar, kind of just that flavor that's left in your mouth and your throat, but definitely not like really nice long finish that you would expect from an old whiskey. And it makes sense. It's not an old whiskey. It's only 5 years old. So we'll see how it tastes again. Man, this is just a really powerful whiskey. And I really like it. But the problem is it's $150. And when it first came out, I think it was about 100, and this was 150 2 years ago. And I think now it's getting closer to 200 a bottle. And, I understand there are additional costs associated with getting local barley, although I don't think this one's all local barley. And I say that because they specifically mention that on the 0.3 releases, but I haven't seen on the 0.1 releases that they specifically mention it being all barley from the Octomore farm. I do believe this is being all aged on Islay, which is nice. Not many Islay whiskeys, as I mentioned in my previous video, are actually aged on Islay. A lot of them are being aged on the mainland. But even though it's cask strength, not cask strength, 57%, even though it is the peatiest whiskey in the world, I kind of think they did that a little bit as a gimmick, if I'm being honest. It works. It tastes great, and it makes it a unique whiskey. But I think they're using that a little bit as a gimmick to charge as much as they are. I don't see how this justifies the cost of what it is. And I don't mean that I don't think I would pay it again. I actually would, just because it's really good. But I think if it wasn't so rare, I don't think Bruichladdich would get away charging what they do. If they produce just a little bit more of it, I think people would not be willing to pay that much money for such a young whiskey, even though it is very good. I just don't see how they justify it without it standing as a relatively rare and slightly gimmicky bottle. That being said, the whiskey's good. So remember, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up, and let me know down in the comments below what you think of the Octomore. Do you think it's overpriced? Do you think it's totally worth it? Did you like it? And were you actually impressed with how smoky it was? Or do you think it's kind of just a gimmick? Let me know, and until next time, cheers.